We'll start off with a battery. We'll assume that you have that and you're not running a Magneto. So negative, positive. We need an ignition coil because we need to actually have the bike run. We're going to end up with a voltage regulator, a headlight over here. That's a massive fucking headlight. And then we're going to have a tail light. So the way that we're going to connect everything together, we're also going to have an ignition switch. I normally run just one fuse. If I'm doing a kick-only bike, I normally run it on the ground. You could run it on the positive. It doesn't really matter, but we'll just assume we go that way for right now. The mainline power coming up from the battery, make this a pretty good size wire and just run it right to the bottom of the ignition switch, right? So that's going to be your constant power coming into the switch. Keyed on the switch, I split that off into two setups. So I want one that goes to my ignition and one that goes to all my lights. So off of this wire, or well, I guess this wire itself, come from the ignition switch through the coil, and then that goes to your points. And there you go. That part's done. For the lights, I bring that up over here and then split it into two ways. So the headlight, I'm just gonna run one wire up and send it straight to the headlight. The tail light, I need to split it again because you're gonna have a running light that goes to the tail light, and then also down here, a brake switch, right? So that's when you actually hit the brakes, it's gonna close the circuit and then give you a brake light. Now out of the voltage regulator, this one should normally have one wire. I understand there's gonna be a couple wires that go this way that's gonna go to your alternator and all that sort of stuff. But we'll just assume that this is all fine. You took it all apart together, or at least you can plug it back together when you're building the bike. Take your one wire coming out of your voltage regulator. I run that to a 4-pin relay. It's like a 30 amp relay. You just get them at O'Reilly's or whatever. So you're gonna have your power coming from the voltage regulator. You're gonna have your mainline power going back to the battery side of your ignition switch, and then you're gonna end up with two other wires coming out of it. One, you just need to ground, because all this is a little solenoid that's going to close a switch for you, and then the other wire, run it up right back to the keyed on. So when you turn the key on, that's going to give you power to your coil, power to your lights, and power to this 4-pin relay, which connects the voltage regulator back to your battery. So you're charging and using power as you need. If you want to run an electric starter, don't run this on the ground. Run it on the positive side, because you try and use your electric starter through a 30 amp fuse on an itty bitty wire, that's going to explode. So you're going to need to run a much fatter ground wire to the frame, and the electric starter would just be down here. It's going to have two wires coming off of it, one big mainline power wire that actually runs the starter motor itself, that goes directly to the battery, and then another one that comes out, and that's going to go to your solenoid. So out of that, all you got to do is just put in some sort of a starter button on that one right here, and then run that over and directly back to your keyed on side of the ignition switch. There you go. That's all that I added when I ran, set up, the Sportazuki, because it actually has electric start and doesn't have a kickstart. So all I did was just add one more wire to my setup up there. If you're gonna run a Magneto, then this gets so much simpler, because you get rid of the coil, you get rid of all this. You get rid of everything for an electric starter. You can get rid of the battery. You can get rid of the ignition switch. Ultimately, on a Magneto bike, all you're going to run is one wire coming up. I get rid of this relay as well. I run the wire from the voltage regulator directly into my line for the lights right here, and that's it. When the bike starts up and it starts making power, voltage regulator starts powering my lights, and that's it. That's my very generic way. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing.